Ladies and gentlemen, as we begin our services, if we can please kindly turn off all cell phones or electronic devices, or please place them on silent. Thank you.
My name is Rabbi Joe Domash. I had the honor of being the rabbi at Congregation B'nai Israel in Burlington, New Jersey, where Joyce's family, had been one of the Martin's family had actually been one of the founding members of the synagogue. You'll hear in my statement of life that Barry and I actually attended Willingboro High School together. He was a little bit older. Can I hear? I had the honor of being interviewed by her and the committee when I took the position. While this is a very sad moment, I caution each one of you, we are in the midst of what is called Chol HaMoed Sukkot, which is we are in the middle of the Sukkot holiday, the festival of booths among English-speaking people. It is not a sad holiday. That is why you will not hear traditional eulogies, and there will be certain prayers that I will not say, because we are to be joyous to the best of our ability. It is said that a tzaddik, an honorable person beyond reproach, is given the opportunity to pass at this time or during a holiday. The reason being is that they save those that matter to them from the feelings of grief. And so with that, I ask you to please keep that in your mind as you hear my words, because I'm asking none of you to cry, but to remember joyously the life of Joyce Glassman. Shvihiti Adonai lenegdi tamid כי ממני בלמות לכן שמח ליבי ויגל כבודי אף בשרי יזכון לביתך כי לא תעזוב נפשי לשאול לא תיתן חסידך לראות שחד תודיעני אורח חיים שבע שמחות את פניך נימות במנחה נצח. I have set the eternal before me always. God is at my side, and I shall not be moved, and therefore does my heart exult, and my soul rejoice. My being is secure, for you will not abandon me in death, nor will you let your faithful ones see destruction. You show me the path of life. Your presence brings fullness of joy, enduring happiness is your gift, and together we say, Amen. Death has taken our beloved Joyce. Our friends grieve in their darkened world. In their silence, there is lamentation. In their tears, there is loneliness. Lost in their sorrow, may they find the presence of loving friends. May this holiday brighten their constitution. Hear them, O God, and be with them. For Joyce's love that united all of us in life, which death cannot sever, for her companionship that we shared along life's path and which continue through the tenderness of memory, for the gifts of her heart and mind that brought us joy and happiness and are now a precious remembrance, For all these and more we give thanks to you, O God. In this time of grief, we listen to the voice of our sacred scriptures that bring us an ever new message of God's nearness. It tells us of our kinship with the Creator, in light as in darkness, in joy as in sorrow, in death as in life. I ask you all to please join me with the recitation of the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. And yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. And surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Adonai ma'adam tedaehu bein enosh v'tashbeinu Adam levadam yimav katzel over baboker yatzis v'halav le'erev yimloel v'yavesh. God, what are we that you have regard for us? What are we that you are mindful of us? We are like a breath. Our days are the passing shadow. We come and go like grass, which in the morning shoots up renewed, and in the evening fades and withers. You cause us to revert to dust, saying, Return, O mortal creatures. Would that we were wise and understood where we go, for when we die, we carry nothing away. Our glory does not accompany us. Mark the wholehearted and behold the upright. They shall have peace. God, you redeem the soul of your servants, and none who trust in you shall be desolate. And together we say, Amen. Adonai Natan ve'Adonai Lakach, Yehi Shem Adonai Mevorach. God you have given, God you have taken away, blessed be the name of God. An ancient people, Jews are well acquainted with grief and the valley of shadows. Death and sorrow are not strangers to us. The centuries have taught us that a good name endures beyond the grave and that there is strength in faith. With Job we say, Adonai Natan, God you have given. God, you gave us a loved one who will not be forgotten, and for all that was good and enduring in her life, we offer the deepest thanks of our hearts. Adonai Lakach, God, you have taken away. We pray for the strength to turn our broken hearts into an altar of trust, which we now acknowledge your sovereignty and love and say, Yehi Shem Adonai Mevorach. Blessed be the name of God forever and ever. It is at this time I ask Hannah and Barry to please come forward, as they have some words that they wish to share with you.
Thank you, Rabbi. All right, I can't promise that I won't cry, but hopefully you can see me. So just in case you did not know, Mom was a very good person. She was a great friend to a lot of people. She was fun to be around, and she was an awesome mother. Over the years, I learned that it's a parent's responsibility to teach their children life skills. Skills such as be polite, use proper manners, get a good education, provide for a family, stay close to your family, make a lot of friends, know right from wrong, contribute to your community, and of course, help others. That's not the whole manual, I'm sure, but that's a pretty good list of important things a parent should teach their children. And my mom did that. She taught me mainly through example. Mom was never somebody to sit me down and give a lesson to, but she did it through example. And fortunately, I was at least smart enough to pay attention and try to emulate. Joyce probably learned most of those good skills, from her parents and family. She grew up in Camden, surrounded by many friends and family, a Jewish community. Her father, Marty Sigel, my grandfather, as most of you know, was elected sheriff of Camden County and held that position for 17 years. So Mom always learned how to dress well, how to be polite around people, make friends, because she was surrounded by politicians, business people, and even some local celebrities. Those experiences stuck with her, I believe, and she passed them on to her children, as a good parent should. I remember when I was little running around the Glassman's department store. If you didn't know, that's where I was more or less born and raised, Burlington, New Jersey. The Glassmans had a department store right on High Street. And Mom used to show me how to help customers, how to keep the store clean. She had me arrange the boys' shirts by size and then by color. She made sure that I knew that all the hangers had to be just right. She taught me how to sweep the sidewalk outside and to notice that the other merchants were doing the same thing. I was probably only 7, and the broom was certainly larger than me, but she taught me those skills. And that might explain why, if you were to ask Diana and Hannah, it's tough to go out to a store or restaurant with me, because I have a habit. I look to see how many light bulbs may be out. Is the carpet dirty? Is the place well staffed and being operated properly? It's just in my blood. It's the way I was raised. And back then, during the summer months, during the weekends, the Glassman store would close. And our family and my cousins on the Glassman side, we all hopped in the cars and we all drove down to Atlantic City. And my grandparents had a house 2 homes away from the boardwalk and the beach. And all the cousins were together in this big house. It was much bigger when I was only a little kid. We were there not too many years ago, and it just didn't seem as big as it used to be. But we fit the whole family in there, and it was a wonderful time, great memories. And my mother, Joyce, used to be out on the beach with all the boys, and she'd be throwing the football. She was great. Very, very into sports, and very good about being together with the family. After the Glassman's department store closed, we moved to Willingboro. And Mom began a career in various sales. First, she started selling advertising, Not sure how many of you remember, there was an AM radio station called WJJZ, and my mom sold airtime to advertisers. She used to use me when she went on those sales calls to make a pitch. She went with a little booklet and brochures, the whole 9 yards, but in tow was her little kid that when we got out of the car, she'd mess up my hair a little bit, pull my shirt tail out just a little bit, because that decision maker across the table was listening to a prepared proposal, a prepared pitch. But we kind of knew my mom was trying to get the point across. I got to feed this little kid over here. You need to buy my advertising. And that was my introduction into sales at a very young age. Mom would have me shake hands with whoever that decision maker was and look up. But I always had to make sure I had a little bit of a sad and hungry face. Apparently, we were good as a team. Like I said, we moved from Burlington to Willingboro. That was 1968. I was 7 years old. It was a big house. Moving from an apartment to this big house with all this grass around it. Penny and I, my sister, we had to, at that point, start to make new friends, get used to a big school. We weren't used to big schools coming from Burlington, or Burlington, if you have to say it correctly. It was scary stuff for most kids to have to get acclimated to that new situation. Mom always encouraged me to invite the other kids from the block around to our house. Our driveway always had a bunch of bicycles lined up in it, and we were always playing in our yard or the garage. We played kickball in the street in front of my house. That was cool. Well, that's because I had a cool mom. All the kids knew that. It was with Mom's help and encouragement that it wasn't long after that I became known as the ringleader in that little neighborhood. Eventually, Mom moved into the world of residential real estate, working for several different companies. I'm not going to try to name them all. I do remember March Realty. Haven't had a cup of real tea in years. That was one of their advertisements. It was terrible, terrible. Then she eventually, with two partners, opened their own brokerage, Town and Country Realty. She still used me all those years for open house events, trying to close sales, going door to door sometimes. Some of you who are here who worked with her, before you even knew her, I was the one that was out with the American flags on whatever holiday, putting them up at houses. That's what Joyce did. She was the old school, old method, door to door, get to know people, work your base, your book of business, your friends, and she tried to pass that on to a lot of people that she worked with. So I helped her out as much as I could until I was a teenager and said, I've had enough of this. You're on your own. Going back, Mom and Dad were always active in our synagogue. Dad was president at one time. Mom was very active with the sisterhood and the youth group. We continued with Temple B'nai Israel when we moved to Willingboro. We didn't join one of the Willingboro synagogues, and you were in Beth Torah, right? See, I do remember that. And but we continued with Temple B'nai Israel because of our long, long history with that synagogue in my family. That was home to me. Mom used to take me to Friday night services because she was a night owl. Dad was always up early in the morning. He took me to Saturday morning services at 7:30 because he was already up. And when they both were too busy and I was old enough, I literally rode my bicycle from Willingboro to High Street in Burlington for services. I learned the importance of gaining that Jewish education, taking part in services, which I still do today in the synagogue that we belong to in Easton, Pennsylvania. A synagogue that reminds me of home. I don't know why that struck a nerve. I remember Mom guiding me as I prepared for my bar mitzvah. She's the one that sat down at the kitchen table and listened to me practice. She had no idea what I was saying in Hebrew. She hadn't learned that. But she sat there with me and made sure that I was doing it. She helped me write my speech. She was good at that. Those were just some more of the good life lessons that Mom gave to me. Mom was very charitable. I think a lot of you may know that. She taught me to be the same way, and I've tried to teach Hannah the same. March of Dimes and Cancer Research were the two organizations that for decades she raised money for. I remember, and some of you will recognize this, I was probably also 8, 9, 10 years old. Mom was collecting money for the March of Dimes. And she took me to the Willingboro Plaza, the famous outdoor plaza, one of the first in the nation like that. And we stood in front of stores. And we collected dimes for the March of Dimes. That's what it was. You collected dimes. And Mom taught me again. You stand up tall, you shake hands, you look these people in the eye, and you ask them for a donation. And you do it because they'll probably give it to the kid. And she raised money. And then the Cancer Society in later years. She always believed that the best interaction with people was to interact with the people. She never cared for a smartphone, never cared for Facebook. She couldn't do it anyway, but didn't know how to do it. She used to always ask me on her phone, "What's that thing that looks like an envelope?" I said, "Mom, that's the 250 messages that you haven't replied to that people ask me about." Mom taught me it's important to help individual people, not just organizations. Here's an example from when I was a kid. There was a man who rented a very small apartment, and David might remember this, David Silver over there. Behind Temple B'nai Israel was, I believe it was considered a caretaker's apartment from way back. And now there was this gentle old man that lived there. I only knew him as Mr. Bennett. Never knew his first name. But Mom used to bring clothes and food, toiletries, and she would bring me along to High Street. Mr. Bennett would come out on the sidewalk, and Mom always prepared me. You talk about school, you talk about your friends, and you talk to Mr. Bennett. And I did. He was a tall man. Well, everybody back then was tall to me. And I'd shake hands with him, and I guess I had a conversation with him, or he asked me questions, while Mom would bring the bags of stuff to his front door. And then eventually we'd say goodbye until the next time I got to see Mr. Bennett. just a great thing that she did. When it came to teaching their children about having a good work ethic, Mom and Dad also did that by example. At no time did they have to say, now, when you get a job, you have to be very punctual and get up and dress well. I just saw it by example. Dad was always up very early in the morning, and I used to occasionally ask him, Dad, why do you have to get up so early? Why don't you have a job where you don't have to? Well, yeah, he got me. I wake up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning now, and it's time to start work. So full circle. Mom, on the other hand, didn't like mornings. Another cute story, we had a very dear friend from Temple B'nai Israel, a very important lady and husband, Judge and Mrs. Dembo, Sybil Dembo. You remember Sybil Dembo? Sybil was at least 50 years older than Mom. No, forgive me. Sybil was not a young spring chicken. And when Sybil was in a nursing home, she was approximately 100. I don't think to this day anybody knows exactly how old she was when she passed. There's some stories that she might have been about 108. Well, at the age of 100, Sybil would be up, dressed by 8 o'clock in the morning, and she'd pick up the phone and call Joyce, telling her, and my mom was probably 70 or 60, and Sybil would wake my mother up and tell her, you have things to do today, you got to get up. And I used to be so frustrated. Mom, you should be calling Sybil. But it was that work ethic that I saw Mom working nights, weekends, odd hours for open houses. It was that work ethic that I grew up with, and it stayed with me. To this day, I'm the guy that is up early, working, getting dressed, even if I'm working from home. I'm still shaving, showering, and I'm getting ready for work, even if it's just at a dining room table to work on a laptop. It's just what I know how to do. And that came a lot from Mom. Mom and Dad encouraged me to volunteer at work or anywhere else. Go do things. Raise your hand and volunteer for the tough jobs that other people don't want to do. And I still do that today. Mom taught me very practical things around the home. When guests were going to be coming over, she and I would get the house ready with food and snacks. She and I would clean and dust and vacuum together. I learned how to polish silver, right? How to dust the chandelier and how to set a table properly, where the forks and the knives and the spoons, how the right way to fold the napkin. And I drive my wife and daughter nuts with all that every day. Blame it on Joycey. There was a monthly card game that my parents and the folks at Temple B'nai Israel and the Cherry Hill area would get together and rotate houses where they played cards once a month. And when it was time for that card group to meet, I always looked forward to preparing the house or going to the other family's house where I'd get to see people like David Silver. Ray and David's parents, Ray and Anita, were part of that group. Some of you may recognize the name Horowitz. They were part of that group. And the Friedman, Sue Friedman is here also. Loved Ann and Hi Friedman. that was always fun as an example to see. And then for a while, Diane and I had something similar where we live with some neighbors. We used to get together and play cards periodically. Little did those neighbors know how good Diana is at poker. And she would, Tom Bolger sitting in the back was part of that group, Tom being one of our next door neighbors still. And Diana would take people's money. It was fun. I knew it would happen, and it was always fun to watch. Yeah, that's true, not yours, our neighbor Jack. There was also the Cherry Hill Camden group, a whole nother separate group going all the way back to junior high, high school, and some social groups. My uncle Lenny Dembo, Lenny and Sandy Dembo were part of that group. Jean and Evie Bass, Ellen is right here from the Bass family. And there were others from that whole group of Camden people who all grew up together. It was wonderful. Uncle Lenny, though, was always my favorite. Uncle Lenny knew how to fix broken toys. So when I was a kid, he had his soldering iron. I didn't even know what it was. But if I broke a toy, this man fixed it. And I still remember, I don't even know how old I was, maybe 16 or 17. I rode my bike one day on a Saturday or Sunday morning. I didn't even tell anyone. I rode my bike from our house in Willingboro all the way to 124 Greenvale Road in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. For those of you that know the area, you try to map that out now. I rode my bike through Morristown, through the past all the cow pastures, and I made it all the way to Cherry Hill to hang out with Uncle Lenny. You should have seen his face when I knocked on that door at about 8 or 9 a.m. in the morning, and he opened it up. What the heck are you doing here? And the first person he called was my mom. Do you know your son is here with a bicycle? Later in years, more recently, Lenny and my mom and I, we formed a coaching team. Let me explain that. You may not know it, but for a number of years now, the three of us were coaching the Phillies and the Eagles from afar on TV. Before any game, the three of us made sure we all knew what channel it was on. Get ready, watch it, get your snacks ready. Halftime, seventh inning, we would touch base, call each other. What the heck's going on? Why didn't they change pitchers yet? Why aren't they passing the ball more often? And then afterwards, we'd have our coaching session of, can you believe what's going on, right? Or, hey, finally they won a game. So like true Philadelphia fans, we were very critical, but the three of us took care of each other that way just up until last week with Mom. And that's going to continue with Lenny and I. Matter of fact, there's a game tonight, I think. So you can tell I learned that family and friends are very important to have and to keep. From her childhood on, Mom was very close with her two cousins, Myra Shivian and Freddie Brown. Freddie is here now. Myra, unfortunately, passed away recently, but Matthew Shivian, my cousin, Myra's son, is here. There was a lot of love between those three golden girls, right? They were like sisters. Two of them were sisters. And Freddie, I'm sure you remember all the teasing that Joyce and Myra inflicted on you. But you were the youngest. You were an easy target because you were the youngest. You made it through. But the love was there. That was the key. Three golden girls who loved each other. A family should be together and share in all of the many life events, happy and sad. My mom and dad cherished their family and friends and enjoyed all those great gatherings. In more recent years, Mom learned, unfortunately, the awful pain of losing a spouse as Dad suffered through and then passed away from that terrible disease, Lewy body. And then only a few years ago, my sister Penny passed away, and Mom had to experience the pain of losing a child. Many of us helped Joyce through that awful time. They watched her remain very strong and continue to move forward. My mom taught me, keep moving forward. She taught me that life is going to throw you curveballs. Just deal with it. Keep one foot in front of the other. Handle it. Mom gained many friends along her way, as you know. In the real estate business, she gained a bunch of friends. Mom, as I said, was known as the old school salesperson when everybody else was on the internet and doing electronic searching for people. Mom was still door to door with an old book of names, going through it, making phone calls. Some of her closest friends are here today. Diane Wood, Lisa Burke, and Juanita is here. Diane Cyrus Wood and Lisa visited Mom the day before she passed away. And I love you for being there for Mom. You did a lot. Mom had great friends in Willingboro, right? Because she was all about the neighbors, the neighborhood. Many of those neighbors are here now. The Waldecks were only two houses away. Two houses away. Irma and her family, 3 houses away. I still remember. And Russell Ducksworth and his family, his wife, Nimmy, right across the street. The Waldecks, Nimmy and Russ, Irma, did so much for Mom and Dad over the years. And me growing up, great relationships with everybody. It was wonderful. A great place to live and grow up. Mom taught me through example the value of creating that village of people. And I think the most important part of that lesson was don't expect the village to just show up. You need to get out there, Barry. Get to know your neighbors. Make the friends. Create the village. Because it's a good thing. Mom loved many other things. Some of you may know, but some tidbits here. She loved going to the zoo. She loved animals. She loved her dog, Emily. Whew. She loved all the old TV shows that she and I would watch. And she loved great old comedy movies, all the Mel Brooks movies that she and I would watch together. That to her was good humor. And I torture sometimes Hannah and Diana when the old movies will come on, Young Frankenstein or some others, and Hannah, you got to see this. Dad, when I was 6, you made me watch that. I've already seen it 12 times. She loved going to horse races. I don't know if you know that. I think once or twice, Freddie and I and Mom and Hannah went to horse races. She loved it. She and I loved watching Tim Conway, Harvey Korman on the Carol Burnett show, and we would giggle at all those routines. And in later years, more recently, I would search all the videos and play them for her, and she would laugh. She loved getting dressed up to go to happy events like weddings, or every year she looked forward to the Passover Seder that we had in Philadelphia, hosted by my cousins Rafe and Carol, and all of our family was there, Jeannie and Lee, and everybody, as many as 60 people for a Passover Seder, right? As the years went on, and I remember growing up, probably like some of you Jewish who observed Passover, I remember being at the Lipkowitz's house, Jeffrey, and when I was a kid, and that Passover Seder would last for about 3 hours. Well, we learned over the years with Rafe and Carol that you can actually do that Seder in about 20 minutes. And then you can eat for 2.5 hours and get to catch up with everybody. So, learned a lot over the years. For nearly 50 years, Mom and I loved going together to, believe it or not, Stewart's Drive-In Hot Dogs in Burlington, New Jersey. Those of us from the area here are all going, right? Mom's order was 1 hot dog with mustard, relish, and onions, a French fry, and a root beer. For 50 years, same thing. For 50 years. 2 hot dogs, mustard and relish, French fry, but a large root beer. That's what I got. Same thing that she and I got. Probably wasn't so good for her heart and blood pressure, right? But it was our time. And whenever, even when she couldn't even walk, when I told her, I'm coming by, I'm going to stop at Stewart's, I'll bring it to you. Her eyes, when I would get there and she would smell the bad food that we shouldn't eat, her eyes would light up. She loved it. Mom was not afraid to laugh at herself. More recently, when her memory was fading, and I would call her, like I said, before a baseball game to remind her to turn on the channel at her assisted living facility, her apartment. And I'd say, Mom, it's channel 403. Put the phone down and turn the channel. I want to make sure you can see the game. She'd say, okay. I don't know if you know where this is headed, but then I would hear in my ear, beep, beep, beep. And I'd say, Mom, that's the telephone. That's the telephone. And I'd keep yelling, Mom, and I'd have to wait for her to put the phone back up, and she'd say, the TV's not working. I can't see the ball game. I'd say, Mom, you got to get the remote. And she'd go, oh. And she would giggle and laugh, and then she'd say, oh, yes, the game is on. Okay, I'll catch you at halftime or after. Mom would complain that she couldn't see things as she got older. She would squint terribly. And I'd have to get new glasses for her, but it never helped because she wouldn't wear them. And she couldn't see, and she'd squint. But amazingly, as soon as we would arrive, she could spot a piece of lint on the carpet 25 paces away. She'd wait till I sat down, and she'd say, go pick that up. And she did it with what we've finally termed the Bernie Sanders point. She'd use her finger, and she'd say, there's a piece of paper over there. You got to go pick it up. Towards the end of her life, Mom moved, as I said, into an assisted living apartment at a wonderful place called Abington Manor at Morgan Hill in Easton, PA. I didn't really know the place, but it's where Diana and her family selected for their mom, my mother-in-law, Rose, where Rose got wonderful care. And so it made perfect sense to have Mom go there as well and be only literally 8 minutes from us, as opposed to the hour and 45 minutes that I was doing once, twice, sometimes 3 times a week, back and forth to help her out or to visit her in the many, many hospital visits, rehab visits. But I learned quickly with Abington Manor what angels on earth means. The people there were fantastic. From the day Mom arrived, there was some connection. They loved her. And I thought it was just part of what they tell every family, right? Oh, we love your mother. She is so good to be around. She's funny. We'd like to visit with her. I'm like, okay, yes, thank you very much. But the more time I spent there, I witnessed it. These young ladies, 18, 19, 20 years old, whose job it is to care for 50, 60 people in a building, would come in, hug Mom, give her a kiss, and talk to her. And then eventually I would sort of whisper, are you bringing medicine or something? And they'd say, no. I came down from another floor, but I like to come down and just say hi to your mom, because we talk. Wow. It was unbelievable to see. And Mom wanted to know everything about these kids and ladies and some of the men that worked there. She wanted to, who's your boyfriend and how long have you been singing and blah, blah, blah. She got into everybody's business. She had inside jokes with them. I would show up and she'd say something that I thought she was, losing it to somebody. But the other person responded back with these. That was the relationship and the kind of people that were there, are still there at Abington. Mom was able to get to know a couple of other angels, in my opinion. Hannah's best friend, Maddie, right here, and our dear friend, Haley Young, back there. I joke around daughter number 2 and daughter number 3. I change that around every now and then so I don't insult either one. But while Joyce was in and out of hospitals and living at the assisted living apartment, Maddie and Haley, along with the rest of us, would visit. They often visited on their own time. Haley worked in, or still works, in one of the hospitals that Mom, unfortunately, was a regular in. About every 2 weeks, am I right? Mom would spend 3 days back at Abington Manor, and her heart would act up again, and she'd spend a week and a half at the hospital, and then back. And unfortunately, folks, it got to the point where I would let a lot of you know that she was in the hospital, but those messages, text messages, it was such a repeat that sometimes you didn't even know she was back in the hospital until after she came back already to Abington. But Haley would take time from her work schedule, 1 floor above or whatever, and come and share lunch with my mom on her own time. It was wonderful. And Haley, every day, every day Haley would send me a text. How's Grandma? How are her numbers? She understood all the test results, and I would tell her BP is this, pulse ox is this, or kidney function is this, and we'd talk about it, and Haley would coach me. You might want to ask about this or that. So, just wonderful. And Mom also loved to talk to Diana. Diana's schedule, whenever it worked out, would spend time with Mom, preferably without me. Because then they would talk about the male doctors, the physical therapist guy that helped you, and they would share things. And Mom would ask Diane, I'm sure, is Barry treating you okay? No, but we'll be okay. No, I'm always joking. All that girl talk, all that gossip. They had a very good relationship, and my mom loved being with you. Mom also loved spending time with her granddaughter, Hannah, of course. Hearing about Hannah's hopes and dreams, boyfriends, future plans. And I always knew Mom would be in a good mood whenever Hannah had the time to give her a call, cheer her up, even if it was for 5 minutes. The rest of the day, my mom felt great, and whoever came in her apartment room or hospital room would show pictures of Hannah and talk about Hannah. And I'm thankful for the many, many things. Mom had a good, long life, as you know, 93 years. She was a great mom, a great parent. I'm thankful for all that she taught me. She left me with a good understanding of what it means to laugh. Don't take things too seriously. Have fun. Be productive. But be a good parent, a good husband, and a good friend. She taught me to be a good person, to do good things. And again, that wasn't hard because she came from very good parents, from a good family. She married into a family of very good people. She only surrounded herself with good people and good friends. She didn't have time for the people who were not good. We'll miss you, Mom. You had a positive impact on each of us, including her granddaughter, and that's my segue.
Hello, everyone. I'm Hannah. I'm Joyce's granddaughter. Thank you all so much for being here. Growing up as the only grandchild to my grandma Joyce was the biggest deal. I got to do it all, and it was just me. I didn't have to share her with anyone. Hot days at the zoo, arcade trips, lunches at Storts, it was always just Grandma and me. I have so many Sunday afternoon memories of being at her home, crawling under the beautiful glass table in her living room. I touched every single glass trinket she had, even though I knew I definitely wasn't supposed to. And I would sneak a peek into her bedroom, just trying to catch a glimpse of what her private world was like. These little moments made up such a big part of my childhood with her. I only had the blessing of spending 19 years with my grandmother. 19 years of learning from her and listening to every piece of advice she gave. She'd often say things like, "Don't listen to your father, he's so impatient," or "Don't get married at 19. One of my favorite memories with her was about 3 years ago, when my dad and I went to visit her on a Sunday afternoon. She and I were sitting together on the couch while my dad stepped out to the garage. My grandmother leaned in close to me and whispered, "So, do you have any secrets?" That was my Grandma Joyce, the woman we all know. Always curious, always wanting to know what was going on in your life, always loving you through her questions. She had a way of being in your business, but in the most caring, playful way. I didn't answer her that day, because of course I had secrets, but if we had given more time together, I know I would have told her every secret a girl could have. Apart from always being the best person to come to tell a secret to, my grandmother was the funniest woman I've ever had the pleasure of knowing. She always found a way to turn the most tense days into a reason to giggle. She was always cracking the most ridiculous jokes to make my dad as uncomfortable as possible, or make every single nurse laugh. During the time my grandmother was sick and in and out of the hospital, she somehow managed to make herself the mayor and favorite everywhere she went. Everyone I met who cared for her, or even family, referred to her as my Joyce, or my favorite. She was always everyone's favorite aunt, favorite cousin, favorite resident. She carried so much joy and love with her, always eager to hear about your day and always excited to talk. Grandma always joked that I was her favorite grandchild. And of course, I'm the only one, but that's what I thought. In these last couple of years, Haley and Maddie seem to have given me a little bit of competition. But I like to think that I was her favorite because in many ways, we are a lot alike. For as long as I can remember, people have told me I look just like my grandmother, especially when she was a teenager. We even tan the same way. I take great pride in sharing the same features with someone so remarkable. How lucky I am that I get to carry a part of her with me for the rest of my life. Grandma, your kind soul and patience prove that love does not need to be shown in big gestures, but in the gift of time and understanding. Today we are joyous, thankful for the time we were given with her. Our Joycey, your memory will always be a blessing.
Joyce Siegel was born in the shtetl of Parkside, Camden. On July 21st, 1932. Now, for those of you that know history, you know that this is the height of the Depression. She was born to Martin and Helen Siegel. Life for Joyce was interesting. It was one born again at the height of the Depression. Her father was one of the owners of Marty's Tap Room, also known as the Old Tap House, at 1990 Federal Street. Joyce and her parents lived in the apartment above the tap house. So as you can imagine, the first real home was that in Willingboro. Life in Camden was challenging at this time, but Parkside, you didn't know it, because everybody around you was poor. Most of the people you were surrounded with were your people. They took care of you. They shared what they could, made the best for everyone. And Joyce, while having no siblings, did have two cousins, as we just heard, Myra of blessed memory and Freddie, who's here with us today. And they were like sisters. Joyce, like any child during the Depression, when their parents, thank God, had a job, would go to school, would come home, and go to work. Help out, do what they had to do. Now imagine a child in a tap room. Imagine what that kid's doing. Well, they're cleaning and doing different things, but Joyce did something different. She learned to interact with people. It was a skill that she shared with all of us for all of her life. It was amazing. As she grew older, she developed her own social life. Again, honing that ability to communicate. And one night in 1948, while out with her friends at Janny's Ice Cream Parlor in Camden, she met this guy, Marty Glassman. He was from Burlington, the northern shtetl, the Jewish settlement. And basically that shtetl, all the merchants in the area, Glassman's department store and the others that were along High Street, served the farming communities of Burlington County. We say that in the moment that they met, the wings of their souls touched. Well, they dated for a while. Joyce graduated Woodrow Wilson High School, and in 1951 they were married. The newly married couple set up in the apartment above Glassman's in Burlington. They worked at Glassman's department store, and at the prompting of Joyce, however, they started their own membership at Temple B'nai Israel because she wanted to make her own mark. Marty's family had been one of the founding members of the synagogue, and Joyce and Marty were involved. Ultimately, Joyce took on the role of the president's wife when Marty held the position of president of the synagogue. They were very active in the youth group activities, as we heard, and the family grew with the birth of Penny in 1955 and Barry in 1961. She did a lot of philanthropic things that we've heard. She did learn sales, communicate with people, worked in real estate. And in 2008, while I had grown up in Willingboro, and as a freshman, as I said, Barry and I went to Willingboro High School, I didn't know Joyce directly. But in 2008, when I interviewed for the job, being Joyce, she was part of that community. Sitting at the table with roughly 8 other people, very quiet woman. But having been a salesman myself, I could understand that she was watching everything that I did and listening to every word that I said. And I also noticed her fidgeting and looking at this one individual who was the quote-unquote gabbai, but he really ran the shul, Irv Horowitz. And everybody was asking different questions of rabbinics and different things, how he would handle something. And Joyce just looked up and said, "Can you sing?" And I said, "Well, yes." And typically in a rabbinical interview, the first interview, you don't have to audition. But Joyce made it that I went and auditioned. We went into the sanctuary, and I, at that moment, auditioned. And I realized watching her and a couple other people, but watching her specifically, that she was a member of the old guard of the synagogue, because she looked at Herb Horowitz, and without a word, I realized that I was approved by her, and therefore Herb actually came to me and said, "Well, if you want the job, it's yours." And so it was a very, very interesting experience. The next week when I came back to the shul and we were talking about different things, Joyce was there again in that meeting, and she confided in me that she in fact knew my parents, that her family had been customers of Butcher Boy, which was the meat cutting, or the butcher shop in Willingboro that was my father's butcher shop. I learned how big her heart was by just watching her do her thing, which was schmoozing with everybody and anyone new into the shul. I watched her interact with everyone with great grace and with the utmost respect for anyone that she came to meet. She focused on making everyone's life better because she was in it. And if you were in her inner circle and earned her trust, she would share her opinion as well. I remember in my first couple weeks of being a rabbi, she wouldn't say it blatantly or push me, so to speak, but she reminded me that Temple B'nai Israel was a merchant's shul. And what that means is that the services started on Saturday morning at 7:30 in the morning because the merchants had to be out by 9:40 to open the stores at 10 o'clock on High Street. What she was basically telling me was, "Rabbi, could you speed it up a little?" And then, as many of you may know my wife, Cindy, we had just started dating at the time. And I remember a couple times during the Kiddush on Friday night, we were in a second marriage, and there's reasons for that we delayed getting married, our exes. And we had just started dating, and she walked up to me, and she says to me, I'll never forget this, she goes, "You know, the shul really needs a rebbitzin." For those of you that don't know, that's the wife of the rabbi. We need a rebbitzin because the rebbitzin gets involved in all the politics, so the rabbi doesn't have to, and that's okay. And is the confidant among the women, and it actually is a very, very big deal position. And we really like Cindy, but we can't call her by that title until you at least get engaged. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yes, Joyce. But when we did get engaged, she came over to me and she said, "You know, your mother would be very happy. I'm like, thank you. I remember how she coached me with one of my sermons that had gone on too long. She didn't say a word. She just cocked her head to the side, looked at me, and went like this. And I could go on. There's lots of stories that I could tell, and I'm sure there's lots of stories that you can tell. But the fact of the matter is that out of respect for that, I move on like this. The world has lost an Ashes Chayil, a Jewish woman of valor. Joyce Glassman will be remembered as a steadfast member of our lives, a God-given influence. She will be missed by family and friends who are here with us in spirit and present with us in this sanctuary. We as a congregation offer our condolences to Joyce's cousins, close friends, her granddaughter Hannah, her daughter-in-law Diana, and especially her son Barry. We hope and pray that she is greeted by her loving husband Marty and daughter Penny, both of blessed memory. And we pray that she may find her place in Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden, what Jews call heaven, among the holy and pure of our people. And I hope that she finds solace and rests in peace, knowing that we are still together, taking care of each other and this world. And together we say, Amen. I ask you all to please take a moment to offer your own silent memories. יהיו לרצון רפי וגיון לוי לפניך אדוני צורי וגואלי. May the words of our mouths and the meditations of our heart be acceptable unto you, O God, our rock and our redeemer. Dear God, into your care we entrust the spirit of Joyce Glassman. For you keep faith with your children in death as in life. Sustain us that we may meet with serenity the mysteries that lie ahead, knowing that when we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, you, O God, are with us, a loving friend in whom we put our trust. You are the light of our life and our hope for eternity. At this time, I am going to offer an ancient prayer known as El Mole Rachamim. I'll translate it after I'm done. Everybody understands English, correct? Okay. El Mole Rachamim is a prayer in which we ask God to bind Joyce's soul into the bonds of everlasting life, that she may find her appointed place in heaven. I ask you all to please rise. El Mole Rachamim Shochem Baromim Hamitzei Menucha Nechona Tachot Konfei HaShechina Im Kedoshim Uteharim Kizahar Harakia Masirim and Nishmat Yitzchaka Yosef Bat Mordechai Ve'elka Shehalach al Yolama Bial Harachamim Yistireha Besete Konfal Yolamim Yitzro Vitzro Achaim et Nishmato Adonai Nachalata V'tanuach B'shalom HaMishkava V'ne'amar Amen. You may be seated for a moment.